And as with many other things in life, it pays to be organised as best as you can. So our little button here, which is what's called our data panel, is where we do our organisation and filing of our work. So everything that you create and have been working on or are working on will be stored in here. But rather than have it just in some sort of random pile, of stuff that you've got to sort through. Use folders, set up new projects. So I'm going to click on new project and I'm going to call this year 10 candle holder, or candle shade as it actually is. Okay, and click new, and press enter, and that's going to save that there for me. So everything I do on this is going to go into that one there. I'll close the data panel. Generally speaking, I close it if I don't need to have it open, just by clicking on this cross and reopening it there if I need. And the reason for that is if you leave it open all the time, you're effectively losing a third of your screen almost. And in most CAD software, you want to be able to see, you want as much screen space as possible rather than as little. So there you are. I've set up my folder. Problem is I haven't set up my document. This is saying it's an untitled document that is unsaved, and that's never a great place to be. So if I click on our file and look at this drop down, part way down, I've got save, and I'm going to call this my name first of all. So John Wilson candle shade side. Because it is the side that we're drawing first. If you use your name, then there's no way it's going to get mixed up with someone else who also calls their work candle shade side or candle shade design or any of those other things. Your name is the unique part. Check where it's going. So at the moment that's not going into the right place. So let's come in and make sure that it is. It's going into my year 10 candle shade there. Click save. And once you do that, you should notice that this will now become named up here, and it's saying where that is saved and what the name of it is. And this now has a name, John Wilson Candle Shade Side 1. Okay, so once we've done that, we're good to start drawing. The drawing is actually really quite simple. So we're going to come up to the sketch tools, and we often start in here because we often start with a sketch, the 2D shape. I want to choose a rectangle, so if I come across here I can choose a 2-point rectangle, but you'll notice there's also a little hotkey shortcut, which in this case is an R. So we don't have to go through the menu option. We can simply press R on our keyboard and it will bring us up these 3 planes that we can choose from. I'm going to choose this top view, or plan view if you like. So we're looking down on it from above, or we're drawing it as if we're looking down on it from above. But you could select, depending on what you're drawing, and really just the orientation you want the part to be created on. It's not critical, you don't need to worry too much about this, but for our purposes now, this is going to work best. When I click on that, you'll notice that the grid turns around, so we're looking straight at it. Now, this is what's called our origin here, where the X and the Y cross. And it's really good practice to start on the origin, or to use the origin as the center of your drawing and work out from that. It's not good practice to sort of randomly click over here somewhere and just use, just for all sorts of reasons that we'll look at later on. Anyway, so I'm going to start on my origin, and all I need to do is tap once or click once and pull that out. Now you can pull that out to any size you want, but you can see it's the sizes in those boxes are to 3 decimal points. So unless you're snapping onto one of the grid points here, it's going to come up with some fairly sort of strange sizes. So I don't try to snap to where I want it. I simply type in. So you notice that one is highlighted blue, and that's the one that's going to take the first measurement. So you don't need to tick in there, you don't need to delete that, you simply overtype. So I want that to be 12 thick, and then I press the tab key on my keyboard, and you'll notice it jumps to the other one, which now goes blue, and I type in 120, which is the length, and I press enter. So 120 long, 12 wide, and that is my sketch. Okay, otherwise we could also think of it as a profile, but it's a sketch. You'll notice up here there's a little button that says Stop Sketch, and if I stop the sketch, it just turns the angle or position around and puts that now into that sort of plan view or top view. I'm going to press the E on my keyboard. E is a shortcut key for extruding. So it's asking me which is the profile. This is the profile. Our sketch that we just drew gives us the profile that we want. And it asks how high we want to extrude or pull that up by, and the amount is 60. Okay. Type that in, and you can either click here or press enter on your keyboard. It will have exactly the same effect. There's now only really two fairly quick things to do, and that is to put our angle on the end of our pieces, or ends, sorry, of our piece, and also just to make it look like a piece of bamboo. So first things first, I'll just escape out of my orbit tool. I'm going to come up to modify, and you'll notice there's a tool that says chamfer. A chamfer is another word for an angle, which is what we're trying to create. So I'm going to select that end, and I'm going to select that end. Notice they've both gone highlighted, and then it asks me how much is the distance of the chamfer. The distance is 12, and it's an equal distance, okay? And that's going to give us our 45-degree mitre on the end of our piece of material, like so. The only thing is, if I look at it in plan view, and you can use this button up here, it's really useful. People often don't use this very much. You can rotate, you can flip angles of things, you can move by 90 degrees at a time, you can just click and freehand pivot, or you can press your home key, and that's going to bring you back to that view. So useful thing here. The only remaining bit now then is it doesn't, our piece of bamboo plywood doesn't look like this. It's not a grey mass. So we're going to go into our modify tool, find the one that says appearance, go into the wood. So if you look at our list, there's plastics, there's glass, leather, there's all sorts of things. Wood, and then there's finished and unfinished. Well, in the finished one, the first one there, bamboo, drop that on, and that is our, as close to our actual finish as we've got. I'm going to click save. You don't need to overwrite that. I always just leave it as user saved, unless there's a very sort of specific reason you need to give it some other name so you know exactly what copy you've done, but that's generally fine. Click OK, and there you go. That's our piece, our side piece drawn.